Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a round of Scottish Gin once again. We are actually joined by Andrew, one half of Little Brown Dog Spirits, who are actually our nearest distillery, the nearest distillery to us here in Aberdeenshire.
What, a mile is a crow
Yeah, if
flies?
we look out the window, Benahee, the wee hill that we see, well, it's not so wee, but that hill we see out the back of the office here, they're just on the other side of it. So we probably could have had this, chat face to face with the new safety
Socially
measures.
distanced.
Yeah, we could have, but anyway, we'll keep to the theme of doing online Q&As. But on that note, are you there, Andrew?
Hi there, how you doing?
How's
Good.
it going?
How are you?
There's literally the biggest fly in the world attacking me right now.
That's good timing.
He's waited this moment.
And
Me right now.
you're a vet as well. You shouldn't be. I saw you swat it there. Is that not like?
Yeah. They're not on my list of animals. Like.
Okay. Get away with that one. Cool. Well, hopefully there won't be many more that I'll bug you through the interview, but we'll understand if you start sort of doing some moves.
Yeah.
um, so, yeah, that's it. So I guess you're a relatively new brand, although you've been making spirits and experimenting for a long time. So for those that don't know much about you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your business partner Chris and how you came to make spirits?
Yeah. This is something we've been working away at for like a number of years, and really it started with me trying to share a learning experience with people, going through various whiskey experiments at that time mostly, and playing with things like cask types and so on, and just trying to kind of start a conversation about some of these things, and then the evolution of that. So as you move on from one thing to another and learn more, you feel yourself getting more and more into it and deeper into it and going down other alleyways.
Yeah.
And so at a time where I was kind of reading about stills and various other bits and bobs, and Chris had approached me and asked me, what could we do on the farm here to diversify and so on. And he just got me at the right moment at that point. I think if we hadn't had that conversation then, that would be about early 2018.
Okay.
Then everything that is around me now would probably still be in my head, because I'm a bit of a serial procrastinator. But certainly it's been, that's what kind of sparked and kind of evolved from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we formed the company formally in 2018. Had our first releases in 2019, and then have released our first core product earlier this year.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the farm there. That is Chris's farm, is that right? So
yeah, that's right.
That's his
Western Counties farm. Sorry.
That's his day job, so to speak. Is that right?
Yeah, that's his day job. Yeah. But yeah.
So can you explain a wee bit of the sort of research and process that you guys have went through to create your gin?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's really hard to kind of sum how many years, although we've been doing this as it currently is in its current form for about 2 years, this process began way before then, and certainly, home gins, like so many other folk do, cold compounding just with shop bought gin, and of course everybody starts with slow gin, but for me, it was more interesting looking at other things. So I think we made our first gins about 2012, 2013. Were like beech leaf gins and gorse gins and so on. So it was nice to return to some of these botanicals at a later date with distillation. So that kind of started the gin journey, if you like. But Chris and I have both got an interest in spirits generally. Myself coming more from the kind of whiskey side of things, and Chris from the gin side of things, and just that shared knowledge, and bouncing ideas off each other and so on. We're both pretty geeky in that respect. Like our reading, and I kind of got a full raft of. I'm trying to think of a better word than hooky notes, but really it was hooky notes from a degree course. So I've done all the reading to degree level, but never because we never paid for the notes when they were sat at the exams.
Yeah.
So, but just that wanting to learn and just progress, you know. And the best way you can really put that knowledge to test is to do it yourself and try to develop things in the way that you feel that you want to do them, you know.
Yeah.
So that's been that, and you've got to blame the Craft Distiller's Handbook for a lot of these ideas, because it's a very dangerous book to read. If you never intend on doing anything like this, then don't ever pick up that book, because it lulls you into this false sense of security that, oh yeah, I could totally do this, you know. So that was again that I was reading that book at the moment when Chris said to me, "Do you think we could do something like this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely."
Yeah, 2 years later or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like timescales, forget about those again. You know, it's just all out the window. But
sorry.
When you go.
And so, did you always intend to establish your own distillery? Clearly, that's where you are now. We've seen it, but was that always the plan?
Yeah, I think really my original plans for Little Brown Dog was to just be an independent bottler.
Yeah.
And that is, we're doing that at the moment. But this kind of need to have control over process. Distilling is clearly the way we were always going to end up going, even if we didn't know that. And rectification is the easiest step on that ladder in terms of getting a license to distill.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to stop at rectification, but it's a foothold for us, and it's still a hugely creative process. Although we're buying a grain neutral spirit and rectifying it, redistilling it, it is this blank canvas that affords so much creativity. And it sounds very blasé, very easy for me to say that, because it sounds like someone else is doing all the hard work making the raw spirit. But I genuinely do believe that. And coming from somebody who was looking at this with a kind of whiskey vision, and distilleries must distill, ferment, and all these things like that, I've definitely changed my view over the years, especially meeting people that I believe are genuinely creative and very knowledgeable people. And I blame a lot of all what we've ended up doing, and I've mentioned a few times, Pete and Rich at Lost Loch Distillery, because I went to visit them just for a laugh more than anything else, and see what they were up to, and just learned very quickly that there is this ability to create, and it is a proper process. It's not just flavouring alcohol. I think I've heard somebody once describe gin as juniper flavoured industrial rubbing alcohol, and I may have used that term once or so in my past myself, but this is, I believe, something that we can put our imprint on, and I think that there's almost this endless list of possibilities. And again, if it was just down to me, we'd probably still be playing about with like setting temperatures and soak times. I wonder if we manage a steep temperature of like 22 degrees instead of 20 for 23 hours instead of 24. We'd still be doing this. Whereas Chris is like, get on and do it. This kind of infinite number of possibilities.
Yeah.
And then just nailing that one combination that you're happy with. That's been a fantastic process to go through.
I guess that's one of the beauties about gin, is the fact that the possibilities, besides the sort of your London dry style, Old Tom, Navy strength and all that, besides those kind of guidelines, the possibilities are endless. There's no sort of restriction on it. So
absolutely, but I think even within definitions, there's almost this greater scope to try to interpret those in such a way that is stretching it, but still true to what it should be.
Yeah.
I think with too much freedom, it can create things just for the sake of doing it, without necessarily being about making something that's a quality product.
Yeah.
It almost becomes more gimmicky, and it's more about the gimmick aspect rather than producing a good quality product.
Trying to shout loudly about something that's just different for the sake of being different.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I hate to keep bringing it back to whiskey, but if you look at Scotch whiskey, very, very strict guidelines on what it is to be Scotch whiskey and what you're allowed to do. Yet, despite that, huge abundance of ability for creativity. And looking at some of the freedoms that some of the Scandinavian distillers have got that we couldn't necessarily do in Scotland. the nice thing about gin is we've got that little bit of extra leeway that we can throw some of these other ideas in when we're not really contributing any kind of strict definitions, but it's allowing this flexibility of creativity.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a limit on that, and I think we should have some definitions in place to protect what is a quality perception, of Scottish gin. And that we shouldn't go too over the top with some of these things, but it is nice that there is this ability to kind of reach out and pull out other ideas.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you guys, obviously, at the heart of what you guys do is experimenting, and you've done quite a lot of that in the lead up to your recently launched first core product. So can you tell us a bit more about your experimental series and the spirits that you've made so far?
Yeah, so I mean, the experimental series grew out of what were the whiskey projects. So the idea is about thinking of an idea, something relating to the spirit, and trying to pull out that in sort of kind of under microscope. And so our first project that was available to the public was Project AFG, which we told Chris's mum stood for Aberdeenshire Forage Gin, but means something else.
Another something gin.
Yeah, well, it was like it did feel like that for a wee while. It was,
yeah.
And if you look at it from the outside, without being in this little bubble of gin and this kind of like fully invested in understanding why people are doing these things and that kind of like bubble of creativity, if you look at it cynically from the outside, it can just look like here's another gin,
Yeah.
And we wanted to be able to kind of like add to the arguments about or the discussion rather than argument about how gin is marketed and how it's made.
Yeah.
And trying to be kind of completely transparent with how we decide to do things,
mm-hmm.
and explain the process in that way. Again, kind of taking people on this journey with us to show them how we're doing it,
yeah.
and hopefully they can learn something from it as well. Because there's a lot to discuss,
mm-hmm.
And it's not as simple as contract distilled versus rectified versus grain to glass. It's more nuanced than that, and I think I had quite a hard line thoughts myself on it at the start, but certainly I think my opinion on things like contract distillation has changed, because you can break that down even further into like people doing it on a smaller scale, or the people that are doing it that are really invested in themselves and they've developed their own recipe, they just need to scale up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really just call it contract distillation anymore, but what we feel the way we should do it ourselves is just be really honest about how we're doing it and give folk information to make their own decisions about how it's done. I don't believe it's for us, who are we after all, to criticise other people and how they decide to do things.
Yeah.
We just believe we'll do it our way,
yeah.
and we'll take you with us. We'll show you how we do it.
Yeah.
So that was the main thing behind Project AFG, show that we could do this on a very, very small scale without necessarily spending huge amounts of money that we don't have,
mm-hmm.
but equally not having to go to somebody else to make it for us.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of add to that debate. And then, but also it was with an eye on developing a gin that we would then, call our own later on.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of AFG DNA in our core gin.
Yeah.
And then, when you're doing that, you're trying to give your kind of DNA to your area. I think there's a belief in a lot of distillers about trying to bring things into their gin that is part of where you are from and what makes you.
Mm-hmm.
And with our next project GPS, it was just about taking that a wee bit further into the next level, and also just a wee bit tongue in cheek as well, So Project GPS was our second project. It wasn't a gin, despite a lot of folk referring to it as a gin, but it was a distilled botanical spirit. And for that one, we took every ingredient from within a 500-meter radius of the still. We marked its location by GPS and by what 3 words, and we put the tagline, "Our Provenance is more Provenancy than yours," just because, if you want Provenance, we'll go above and beyond. We'll give it to you,
Yeah.
And it was a really enjoyable process for us, and I still, this last few months been getting like hedgerow twitching, because you just get so focused on watching what's happening as the season develops, see what plants are appearing in your locality, and then understanding how you can work with those to give you flavours. And it's one of of all the projects we've done, I think it's one of my favourite ones, and it certainly started a bit of a discussion, a bit of a debate with people as well. And it was really useful for us, again, going forward, to build up this library of single botanical distillates. That we then have an understanding of what the things are in our locality that we can then use for other things. And it might be LBD Gin, or it might be another project. And I suppose almost sad that we've done it so soon and finished it, because we keep having these other ideas. But what's been great fun with looking at the core product is that the development doesn't have to end at that point. You can then experiment beyond there with the core product as your base, and finding things to do with that, and try to present it in interesting and unusual ways, and also ways that are actually quite tasty rather than just for the sake of doing it. That's been fun as well,
Yeah, and it actually sounds quite interesting what you say there. I never thought about it this way, but usually people happen upon botanicals that might be local, or they seek out certain botanicals that they've heard of that might be. But what you guys did was literally just like take everything that was around you and play about with it. It wasn't like you were being selective. It sounds like you just went for it and tried everything that was out there.
Well, there was that.
Yeah.
I mean, with AFG and with LBD, when we started off, we had an idea of what it is we were trying to create at the beginning of this. Beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
With Project GPS, I didn't know what a birch leaf distillate tasted like. How much grams of birch leaf you're going to use in a grist bill or whatever. So it was about finding that process out, but in doing so also understanding the flavours that we liked, and then from those single botanical distillates try to build up something else. So until we had made those compound distillations, it was we didn't know what we're going to end up with, and that was a great process for us, and in using what we learnt there, the temptation was to go too far down that line and put too many of these things into the gin, and we learnt really that just didn't work. It was an emotional decision as opposed to a quality and a flavour decision. So we had to really rein it back in a bit, because there's just too much overlap with some of these tannins and various other things. There's too much noise. You weren't getting all these flavours. So we kind of found that out as we added more and more things in. Wanting to create this more us type gin, but in doing so we were losing it. So the hardest decision was actually pulling some of these things out for the core product. But I think for the right reasons, I think we've made a better gin doing it.
You touched a bit on your process, Andrew. Do you guys have a set process that you go through when you're developing a product, or is it just a real case of, right, let's get in the distillery and let's be as creative and experimental as we can be?
I think really these ideas, they just come to us as like, we want, wonder what happened if we do that, and then that's the core idea that the project is built around. So we would have released our next project, which would be Project G2G, which I won't tell too much about. But again, that's built on an idea. The reason it's delayed is because we had to delay the gin launch, and it's just set a few other things back in that process. But that process is this idea starts. There's this creative spark, and then you go, okay, well, how do we do that, and how will we build that? It's always with one eye on what the outcome is going to be, though, because there's no point in making something that's completely undrinkable or unenjoyable. It has to, at the end of the day, be something you're going to want to drink. It can be the best idea in the world, but it's no use if it's unpleasant. So that has to be a part of it as well. You want to get too carried away, and equally, we don't want to get a reputation for just doing ridiculous things that are a bit of a gimmick. It has to have this core meaning behind it.
Fantastic. And you guys obviously have, anyone who goes to your website or looks on social media, it's you're very frank, and you did talk about it briefly there about you wanted complete transparency. I suppose transparency is one word, but frankness and brutal honesty and kind of a touch of sarcasm in there as well. I mean, you said that was important, to just be upfront and be yourselves from the start. Is that, why did you decide to take that approach with your brand, if you like?
I don't think it was a conscious decision. I just think it's the nature of Chris and I.
Yeah.
You know, we don't do boastful very well. We're not very good at saying, you know, good, nice things about us. It's far easier just to rip them absolutely out of us, you know. And that's our humour. That's what we're like, talking to each other all the time. So why try to dress it up as anything else? And it's not something we intentionally went to do. It's just kind of how we went about it. And I think part of that decision was because some of the things we do are pretty much on the bone, borderline pretentious. If you try to take some of these things a bit too seriously, you're really going to come across as a right pair, you know. So if you can recognise some of the ridiculousness about some of these things, and get the jokes in first, then you know we're joking with you, you know, and it kind of blurs this kind of idea of like, are these guys really serious about this, or but yeah, we are actually, but we'll make a joke about it, so you don't really think we're that bad, you know. And it's part of the fun for us as well. I mean, we really enjoy doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so let's share a bit of that fun with you guys. Let's enjoy it. But at the same time, you know, okay, we're joking, we're having a laugh, but we are pretty serious about some of these things as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's all there for you. You can read it if you want to.
Yeah.
I think about 90% of people don't want to, or no. I think Chris is still trying to read their website. You know, I think me keeping things short and concise is not one of my key skills.
But I think it's really refreshing. It's actually, and also I suppose you know, there's a skill to. I mean, a lot of people would engage a marketing agency or PR. Like, what's the spin? What's the story? If you're doing it yourself, which you guys are, and a lot of people do, you know, you have to keep it real, don't you? So.
Also, Chris won't pay for anything like that. So
yeah.
But I think that we sometimes struggle to kind of communicate, and this is one of these great things that we can do, these kind of talks. Yeah. We can talk about things in a bit more detail, and we can analyse it, we can explain why we're doing things the way we're doing it. But I sometimes find it difficult when we get requests from press to answer certain questions, and you feel like you're ploughing the same furrow. You know, this has been discussed to death. And we feel like we're different, and we feel we're doing things a slightly different way, but it's very difficult to communicate that sometimes. Whereas, so if we do it all ourselves, and if you want to follow what we're doing, then you'll see what we're up to.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, we think you're doing a grand job. I do think it comes across as genuine and unique. So.
And we actually know a couple that bought your gin purely based on what they read on your website.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there was some folk on Instagram that wrote this review, and it was like, it felt really great because it's like, you read everything, you got it, you understand this. It felt like they really did, so I was really chuffed with that. And I say most people might just buy it because the bottle looks okay, or it's the next new one. But we want people to buy it because they want to be part of it. They want to understand it, and we want people to buy it again because it tastes good. You know, it'd be very short-lived if people only buy it because the new thing.
Yeah. I mean, we've enjoyed reading some of the more, what would you say, unusual tasting notes that you've maybe got on your website. But how would you describe the flavour profile of your gin?
Yeah, I mean the tasting notes on the website are, again, it's us having a wee bit of a joke and a
laugh. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
You can go really into these things, you know. But it's a personal thing, and what I love seeing is how other people perceive it and what they get from it.
Yeah.
Because you think, actually, I get that as well. But I mean, we describe it as a modern Scottish gin. It's still a dry gin. You know, it's juniper at the heart of it, as I believe all juniper should be. And I have a thing for buzzwords, and I will not say juniper forward, you know, unless I'm under extreme duress. Because I don't. It sounds like total bandwagon jumping, and it's not what it is. It's called making a gin. It should taste like juniper. But yeah, I didn't want it to be over the top or have really bizarre things in it. Well, there's maybe some bizarre things in it, but anyway, it's we kind of created this to try to have. It's not just about the smell and the taste, which are really important, but it's how it feels in your mouth.
Yeah.
And that was a key part of the development of it, in trying to create this kind of oily, rich gin that kind of coats. So as you sip it, it builds on the palate. So there's a lot of citrus in there. But we wanted to try and one of my favorite smells is petrichor, right? So that's when it's rained and then the sun comes out and you get this amazing odor in the woods and so on. And so we're trying to create that kind of smell, which I think we've almost managed, you know. So if you close your eyes really, really tightly and you think about that, I'm going to plant that in your head. So the next time you're drinking it, you're like, oh yeah, totally, I'm getting petrichor, absolutely, you know. But it's kind of sherbety. I think it's quite distinctive. Most folk can pick it out, they recognise it, and I think the feedback's been really good. Folk enjoy drinking it, and that's the important part, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, I feel ashamed to say we haven't cracked open our bottle, but we sampled it just before lockdown, like a matter of days before lockdown. But it was a higher ABV, wasn't it? It wasn't quite.
Yeah, you got it out of the tank, so we had.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
So our expectations are like high for cracking the bottle open from memory. So, but yeah. So you launched. We just said there at the start of lockdown. How's it gone? Given everything that's happened.
Yeah, it was a big decision. You know, what you do in that instance, and we had planned to launch in February. We were pretty ready to go at that point. And as anything, you know, that was already a slip deadline. You know, but we just didn't know what was going to happen next, and I don't think anybody did. And we didn't feel that it was the right time, and so we waited. And I'm glad we did. You know, and we've got a really good relationship with the retailers that we work with. So we spoke to them about April time when this looked like this was going to be a long-term thing, and said, you know, where are you guys at? How are you getting on? Because it had been pretty grim for some of these guys earlier on, and they were doing really well, and they were looking for new things. So we said, well, if you guys are up for it, we'll do a soft launch. We'll do an exclusive with you guys that have supported us through the projects, and then we'll open it up after that.
Brilliant.
And it's going very well. I'm very happy with it. We're not salespeople. We're not pushing it out there.
Yeah.
But people are coming to us, and that's working well for us. And it's a good feeling, really good feeling, seeing your product out there.
Yeah.
Chris says it's an even better feeling when you see folk coming back and reordering.
Yeah, of course.
It is nice. It is good. It means that they've sold it, and you know, because we're working with a small number of retailers, the people that are selling with us they're into it. They understand it. They're invested in it.
Yeah.
You know, everybody that has our gin on their shelves has tasted it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing for us, that it's not just about what it looks like on the shelf, it's about them understanding it, and also, you know, them believing that it's a good gin as well.
And then they can get that over to the customer, I guess. That's crucial, isn't it?
I mean, having worked in a bar for years, it's about, you know, understanding what it is available there, and you can then explain that to people and find something that suits them, that they're going to enjoy, you know. And if you've had a chance to taste that yourself, then you've got a much better understanding of it, and that's really important.
Yeah, and I love the promo video that you guys pulled together as well. It was fantastic when it was first released, and we sat and watched it. I was like, oh, this is amazing! This is amazing!
Yeah, they must have got someone to do that for them, but you pretty much did it all yourselves, didn't you?
No, I say we won't pay for anything, so you know, we did that ourselves. It was a bit awkward because we had to reshoot the last bit in my living room with the TV and the bottle and some moss, because that bit didn't come out very well at the top of the hill in sunrise. I say we don't really do pride, but I'm quite proud of that, and I'm quite proud of the gin we made. And I sound like a total softie here, but I mean, like just love my dog. She may have worked out, you know, and just the wee bit with her running up the hill, and you know, I thought, you know, I felt really, really happy there. Yeah. Lump in my throat the first time I saw that, because just to see the dog, the hill, Aberdeenshire, looking great, I just felt, yeah, this is good. I felt we were doing something good here.
So. No, we felt like as well, something that's maybe underrated with new brands, believe it or not, is actually just understanding that, you know, you really need to get the product out there. You need to, you know, it doesn't need to always be polished, but you know, you had the photography, you had the launch spot on with the wee video, and as you say, you actually thought about it strategically. You had the soft launch with not even a handful, 2 or 3 retailers, and then you're kind of moving it on from there. But I think, you guys, you know, nailed that really, really well. So, no, pat on the back.
Yeah.
The retailers have been excellent. They've been good to work with. You know, I think having that smaller group of people means that, you know, they feel part of it too. So
yeah, fab.
Yeah, and I guess for our final question is what's next for you guys, and what can we expect without giving too much away or any stuff you'll be working on.
No. I mean, the projects, the experimental spirit series, that's going to continue. So, although we've launched a core product, that doesn't mean that comes to an end. And I just don't think that Chris could rein me in enough to prevent me from doing these things anyway. They just take a lot of time, and that's another reason for us to have, the core product. It carries that ethos of transparency and quality, but it's there and you can buy it. And it was one of the it's our sense of humour on the bottle, the unlimited edition.
Yeah,
everything we've done up until now has been tiny amounts. So let's take a dig at ourselves again there. So there's another project that is developed and just needs some fine tuning, but I think is something a wee bit unusual, and it's just taking that idea of GPS and just refining it down even more. Bringing in some other elements from previous whiskey experiments. We've got coming. I don't like putting timelines on these things because they're always split.
You have to.
We will have whiskey by the end of the year. Again, that'll be the independent bottled whiskey, and other plans of tweaking the core gin. So maybe looking at seasonal expressions, just because I can't not keep looking at the hedgerows and going, there's something new there, and there's a definite change in the seasons that would maybe suit our gin to do something a spring and an autumn perhaps. But again, that's in my head at the moment, and until Chris drags that out of me, then it'll stay there for a wee while yet.
I might just throw in one question.
A rogue question.
Question. Do you think your love of nature, because obviously you're passionate about botanicals and things like that, do you think that comes from maybe part of your job being a vet, or is it maybe just from your background where you grew up? And
I think it's just part of being brought up in the countryside. I think a lot of it's my mum, and she'll be delighted that I'm bringing her up. She's like biggest fan ever. If you ever see anything we ever write on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, the first person to comment is always my mum.
I've noticed.
That is actually my mum. But I think she's a big part of this. Bring me up. We kind of learn about the edible plants as kids, and kind of it's kind of grown from there. I take my kids out with us when we go out foraging, and just try to really teach them that you only do this when mum and dad are here. This is not just for you to go and eat random things out the woods, because there are some nasty things out there. But it was a bit embarrassing. She was out with her wee kiddie friends. Now they can all meet up again, and Santa's picking all the wood sorrel. And and like one of the mums is like, "Is that safe?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay."
Teach them young. I like it.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I mean, that's definitely from a young age. And then Chris, for him, it's like he's been working the land here. There's the seasons. There's an understanding of the environment around about you. And like I say, we try to say, forage what we can, grow what we can't forage, and then only buy what we can't grow or forage sustainably. Yeah. And it's kind of jokey, but kind of mean it as well, and that's why we're using Chris's expertise to grow some of the botanicals that we can't forage, and then be honest when we buy things. You can't grow lemons very easily in Aberdeenshire, certainly not under natural conditions anyway. So let's not dress it up as anything else, but we felt that we needed lemon in our gin, so we'll put it in there. We kind of not provenance at the expense of flavour, but a combination of everything.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's a fantastic balance of flavour you've got. So well done, and long may it continue. It sounds like launch has gone really well. So and I'm sure we'll see you face to face one of these days. Yeah.
Well, I just get almost throw things at you from here.
Can maybe send you a smoke signal or something like that.
Yeah. No, cool.
But thanks very much for taking the time to chat with us anyway. And it's great to see things are going well for you guys, and keep up the good work as well.
Thanks very much, and thanks for having us on, and thanks for listening to my terrible patter.
Not at all.
It's been
good. Really good.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Cheers. Cheerio. We'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Take care. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All the best.
Okay, that was great. Thank you very much to Andrew for chatting with us tonight. We weren't sure if Chris was going to make it at all, but unfortunately couldn't. But Andrew said he was nominated. But no, great couple of guys, great gin. Go check them out. And
go check out the promo video. I think
it's good. It's worth a watch.
On their website and their social media channels. So
when we talk about that hill that's between us, you'll see it on the video.
But thanks again for tuning in and watching. I hope you've been enjoying the videos we've been doing. We've been enjoying pulling them together and doing them. So
absolutely, it's going to be great fun, and we're learning a thing or two too. So hopefully you are as well. But keep an eye on social media. We will carry on with these. We're kind of doing. We said we were going to go to 1 a week, but I think we're still averaging 2 a week. Just keep an eye on who we're chatting to next.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us. Take care and stay safe. All the best.